Hi, I'm Mrs. Harness, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about earthquakes, and specifically how to measure earthquakes and the intensities of earthquakes. Last time you guys went ahead and you talked about earthquakes and how they happened, and you guys had a little cookie experiment, right? So at this point I would go and I'd ask my students about what you guys learned, and from there we would go on and I would introduce a seismograph. Alright, so the smart board doesn't want to work for me, so I'm going to go ahead and just show the slideshow to represent it. Alright, here's the very first page of my slideshow, and then we would go on, and here is a seismograph. A seismograph measures earthquakes, and then this is what it looks like when they're measuring the earthquakes. Next, I would ask my students if it's even possible to measure earthquakes. And then I would introduce the Richter scale. The Richter scale is a scale that shows the intensity of an earthquake. It starts from the smallest level, which is unfelt, to the highest level, which is permanent. And so my slideshow is going to emphasize each one. And by the end of this, I hope that my students can just recognize each level and understand what earthquakes truly do damage-wise. So, here we have the minor and the small earthquake. Few people feel it. There's no noticeable damage. Sometimes people don't even recognize that it even happened. And if you have felt it, it's kind of like an irritation, like if somebody were poking you, that kind of thing. The next one that we have is a moderate. A moderate earthquake deserves the attention because we can feel it. Sometimes it causes slight damage to buildings, and this is normally when people go and they'll hide under their desks during class. And so that's just a picture of a city. The next one that we have is a strong earthquake. There are about 100 small earthquakes every year, which is actually pretty good considering how many countries there are and how many billions of people live on this planet. It does cause damage. In this picture specifically, I show a building that has collapsed, but most of the time it's not necessarily collapsed buildings, but there is significant damage to be shown. After that, I have a major earthquake. This is serious damage. There are around 20 a year, and in this particular picture, I show that the road has basically been demolished. After that, we have a great earthquake. This one happens once every 5 to 10 years. It's really rare in comparison, and this can destroy entire cities. This is the time when people have to evacuate and normally seek help. So here is a city that had been demolished. After that, I have permanent earthquake. A permanent earthquake causes permanent damage to Earth's crust, and it's detrimental, basically. A lot of people don't survive it, and if they do, they have to evacuate. Here is a picture of a city that went through a permanent earthquake. Okay, so after this, I want my kids to really just truly understand the different levels of earthquakes. And so, in order for them to memorize the different levels and the intensities of them, I'm going to have my kids do a little experiment. And every time that I show a certain slide, I want them to do a certain noise with each slide, so that way they can understand the louder it gets, the louder it gets, the more intense the earthquake is. So, first we're going to go ahead and start with the first level. The first level was unfelt. This is what I'm going to have my students be completely silent. Then I'm going to have the next stage, which is minor, and I'm also going to go ahead and include small with that. And so this is when we're going to talk in a very soft whisper. And I just encourage my students with the pictures that I show to just compare the two. This picture will be the one with the little child getting poked. After that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the moderate earthquake. And the moderate earthquake is going to be the one of the city. And for this one, they're going to just talk at a regular tone. Inside voices so I can understand them. And this will be like everyday talking. After that, we're going to have the strong earthquake. And with this one, they're going to talk in a louder voice, kind of outside voice, much of the diaphragm. And this one is going to be the picture of the building that's kind of collapsed, and also they're going to have the descriptions in every one with the pictures, the descriptions in every one, so that way they can understand what happens with each phase. Then we have the major ones. And for the major earthquakes, I'm going to go ahead and have them talk, but also pat on their desk like this. So obviously the sound is going up. Then we're going to have the great earthquake. For the great earthquake, I'm going to go ahead and have them stomp and clap. And they're kids, so they're going to go really, really into it. And so it might get a little bit crazy, but I plan on having a good disciplinary rule. And if I raise my hand, I expect them to soften their voices and or soften their feet. The next one we're going to have is permanent. And in permanent, they're going to clap their hands and stomp their feet, move to the beat, and I will be playing guitar. And this will probably run through a couple of times, just so that way the kids can truly understand what it is that I'm talking to them about, and they can remember which ones go with which. Then, after that, I want to stress how important it is to be safe during an earthquake, because they saw a lot of damage that can occur from an earthquake, and so I want to make sure that my kids know how to protect themselves in case something like that does happen. And so this is when I'm going to have them go under their desks and have an earthquake drill. And we'll be away from the windows, because I'm going to encourage them to stay away from glass or stay away from things that can fall on top of them. And that way my students can go and recall the next day just how to save yourself from an earthquake the best way you can, and just the different kinds of intensity there are in an earthquake. So after that, I do have a quiz for my students to take. It's really actually very simple. What I'm going to do is those same slides that they saw, I'm going to have them, I'm going to put them up on the board, and the kids have to tell me which kind of, well, they'll be writing it down, but they'll have to write down what kind of intense level it is in the Richter scale. And if my students pass with a 70% or higher, then I can ensure that the lesson was, the objective was met, and that I did my job correctly, and whether or not I need to change anything to it. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that it met your requirements, and it has truly got me excited for teaching. I know it's going to be stressful, but this is truly a gift. So thank you, and that's it.